This is the News at 9.
Pope Benedict meets with victims of clergy sexual abuse, the first meeting between a pontiff and victims since the abuse scandal broke.
You could say that it's long in coming, long overdue, but the fact that the Pope finally met with some abuse victims is a really big deal.
Tonight, reaction from local victims.
Good evening. Pope Benedict has gone where no bishop of Rome has gone before. This afternoon, he met and prayed with victims of clergy sexual abuse.
The unprecedented meeting came after 3 public statements of regret and a vow that pedophiles will not be allowed into the priesthood. This afternoon, the pontiff met with a small group of victims, some from Boston. With them, the Boston Archbishop, Cardinal Sean O'Malley. 2 reports tonight. John Maroney spoke with 2 local victims. We'll begin with Greg Wayland in New York, where the Pope will be tomorrow. Greg?
RD, we understand that the Pope met with 3 men and 2 women at the papal nunciature in Washington, the papal embassy in effect. Now, Joseph Ratzinger, now the man who was Pope, was criticized often in his previous role at the Vatican as an ultra-Orthodox defender of doctrinal purity. But it was in that capacity, in that office in the Vatican, that he had to sign off on the strict new norms governing the handling of future sex abuse cases. So it could be said that no one is more familiar with the crisis than he. He has spoken repeatedly about the clergy sex abuse crisis during his first trip to the United States as Pope, calling it a deep shame for the Church and acknowledging the suffering of Catholic communities due to what he called gravely immoral behavior. But now the meeting with victims that had only been a rumor has taken place.
The Holy Father met in the chapel of the Apostolic Nunciature in Washington with a small group of persons who were sexually abused by members of the clergy.
The spokesman said Benedict told the victims he would pray for them, their families, and all victims of clergy sex abuse.
They prayed with the Holy Father, who afterwards listened to their personal accounts.
In the meeting, Cardinal O'Malley reportedly presented Benedict with a notebook listing the names of victims of sexual abuse from the Boston Archdiocese. There were reportedly more than 1,000 names. The Pope has already acknowledged that the crisis was sometimes badly handled here in the United States. Now he has offered his own hand to victims. We'll have to see if it makes a difference. In New York, Greg Wayland, NECN.
Reaction now from victims who did not get the chance to meet with the Pope today. Our John Maroney spoke with 2 local victims about what today's meeting means to them, and he's in our newsroom tonight. John?
Beth, survivors see this as historic. They have been waiting years for the Vatican to sit up and take notice, and today they say that's exactly what happened. Pope Benedict is getting good reviews for his decision to meet with survivors of the Church's sexual abuse scandal. Phil Saviano founded the New England chapter of the Survivors Network of those abused by priests.
You could say that it's long in coming, long overdue, but the fact that the Pope finally met with some abuse victims is a really big deal. My only hope is that it was more than just a prayer session and a photo opportunity.
The meeting took place in private with the Pope, Cardinal Sean O'Malley, and 5 survivors from Boston. Benedict has gone out of his way to talk about the sexual abuse scandal during his first papal visit to the United States, and survivors like Gary Bergeron appreciate it.
In my mind, he set a mandate, and he set the bar for the Catholic Church. He didn't just talk about survivors, he talked about how poorly this has been handled. He talked about the hierarchy that were complicit in what's been going on. He said that this is not acceptable and we're going to do whatever we can to make sure it doesn't happen.
Boston survivors are some of the first in the country to come forward and tell their stories, forcing the Church to address the issue. They're pleased with the new Pope's actions, but many agree more work still needs to be done.
He said all the right things thus far, but listen, talk is cheap, and you have to follow up the words with action. And one of the things, you know, we've been saying this for many years now, is that the bishops that protected the child molesters and put so many kids at risk, they need to be held accountable.
One survivor told me he hopes this is the beginning of real change and not just a photo opportunity. Beth?
John Maroney in our newsroom tonight. Thanks.